This evening to the District 46 Board of Education meeting, Wednesday, January 24th at 6 p.m. here at Frederick School. I need a call to order this evening for the meeting via roll call, please.
Mack.
Here.
Braden.
Here.
Nash.
Here.
Albert.
Here.
LaCroix.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
And Weedman.
Here. Okay, thank you. Quorum is established. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. That was great. Okay. Okay, thank you. I need a motion to approve the agenda for this evening, please.
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
Miller.
Aye.
Mack.
Aye.
Albert.
Aye.
Weedman. Braden.
Aye.
LaCroix. And Nash.
Aye.
Very good. This evening's agenda is approved. We now are going to hand it over to Mr. Smith to honor our wonderful GMS 7th grade basketball team. Welcome this evening.
Thank you. And thank you for having us again to be able to come over and celebrate some of our wonderful tonight athletes and students, because we're going to do two different presentations tonight. But we'll start with our 7th grade boys basketball team who earned a conference championship, and you'll learn a little bit more about all their success here in a minute. But I'd like to introduce Mr. Victor Garcia, who is our coach and who put together a pretty wonderful video for you to watch as well to show off their success. Come on over, Mr. Garcia. I would like to say that Mr. Garcia is a very beloved coach at GMS. Very, very wonderful working with the kids and doing a great job. And I think taught you a few things along the way too, right? I think so. So you can just say, hi, welcome, all good. You got a couple seconds.
Welcome everybody. I'm Coach Garcia, and I'm so proud for these guys. Did an amazing work. Firstly, for understand me. I'm from Spain, and it's an honor stay here like basketball coach and stay with these guys. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you.
And I think one of the things that I learned and our basketball players learned this year was the language of basketball translates no matter where you play. So it was a very easy translation through the season for sure. So if, Brandon, we could get the video going, we'd appreciate it. Thank you. We forgot to mention at the beginning, or before the video started, that the championship game was a 2-overtime thriller, so it was a wonderful way to end the season. Congratulations, boys. It was fun to watch y'all season. Thank you for having us tonight. Any questions? And yeah.
Wonderful, congratulations. We do have some ribbons for you guys, so come on up.
Yes, so we are so proud of you and our GMS Panthers. We know it's been quite a week for you all already, and as much as we would love for you to join us and stay for the rest of the meeting, we understand that you're probably a little tired, so this might be the time to, go home and get ready for tomorrow. All right, we'll give you a moment for that. Thank you so much, moms and dads, parents, for being here.
Okay, wonderful. That was a great celebration. Do we have any public comments signed up at the moment? No public comments. Okay. That moves us to our presentation this evening for the Twig Science program.
Hello, I am Mrs. Ursler from GMS, now GMS East, and we are here tonight to show off one of our Twig science modules that the students have been working on. The module is called Collision Course, so that may give you just a little bit of a clue as to what it talks about, but we are going to show you just a short little they call them trailer videos in Twig, and so this was just kind of like a hook, kind of just to introduce the unit to the kids. And then I have with me 4 students who volunteered to come tonight, and I'm going to let them do all the talking, and they're going to kind of just go through the process of what they did, and they're going to show off their final product. So, all right. You first? Who's first? Oh. All right, you can introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Rishi, and when we talk about the laws of physics, there's one law that stands out most times, Newton's third law. That says, for every action, there's either an equal or greater reaction. This law is super important when things collide, like during contact sports or accidents. Let's take 2 helmets colliding during a football game. The force of impact is shared between 2 helmets. Newton's third law says that force of one helmet applies in other is equal in strength and opposite in the same force, but in opposite directions. Without the helmets, players' heads would be exposed to the full force of the condition, in which cases would lead to a serious injury. This is why helmets are so essential in contact sports. They help protect players' heads and from the effects of Newton's third laws.
We forgot to show the video. Can we show the video, Brandon? Sorry. Okay.
Today's athletes possess skill, strength, and endurance. And sports performance is at its best. But among all the glory, there are also risks. Sports can be dangerous. Especially if they involve the risk of head collisions. Collisions can damage the brain, and in extreme cases, can even be fatal. As competitive sports get faster and physically harder, the need to protect athletes is increasing. A team of world-leading scientists and engineers are together developing solutions to keep athletes safer in competition.
By understanding the types of injuries caused in sport, we can identify which parts of the brain need more protection.
Get ready to join them in engineering a solution to protect athletes in competition. You'll investigate what happens to the brain during a collision. Then design and test your own sports helmet. Can you engineer a helmet that will reduce head injuries, create safer conditions, and save lives? Will your design survive the collision course?
All right, Brandon, can you just put it on the slide that has the flow map, the process that they took? Nice. Okay, so they're gonna continue through and explaining this process.
Good evening. My name is Lorene. So in order to incorporate Newton's third law of motion, when designing helmets, we had a certain criteria and constraints that cooperated with the sport chosen. So the selection of sports that we were given were football, horseback riding, motocross, alpine skiing, ice hockey, and skateboarding. Well, what are criteria and constraints, you may ask? Criteria is a list of things we have to consider when designing our helmets. Constraints are situations or rules that restrict us from possible designs. For example, my science group had the sport horseback riding. Our criteria was to create a helmet with more protection at the back of the head due to collisions being more frequent there, as horseback riders casually fall backwards, correct? And our constraints were limited materials and the need for it to be lightweight. Although this was our first time going through the terms criteria and constraints in class, it is constantly used in projects and experiments.
Good evening. My name is Jade. The materials that we used to create our helmets consisted of bubble wrap, styrofoam, duct tape, popsicle sticks, and paper straws. Additional items which included straps to secure the helmet onto the styrofoam head, light-up sensors which could detect impact, and plaster strips that were used to create a harder outer shell. Groups began the construction process by planning out a design for the helmet, also selecting specific points of impact. Groups discussed where the helmet would need to be extra cushioned and extra protection in case of collision. Moreover, students were also given a list of requirements that the students needed to include in their design and during the testing period. Additional materials and items could be given to the groups after their testing period if they needed to make revisions.
Hi there, my name is Laura, and I am here to show you all the fun part, testing. So, as you'll notice, all of the heads have this styrofoam ball in it, not styrofoam. This ball will light up if it's collided with, and our goal is to prevent that, because this represents a brain injury. So, we're gonna grab our helmets, and I'm gonna just attach that to the head real quick. Okay. Now, we're going to drop it on the point of impact, which in this case would be the back of the head, and see if it lights up. All right, count of 3. 1, 2, 3. All right, let's see if the sensor lit up. Oh, man. Oh, well, that's fine, because mistakes mean that we just need to move on to our final part of this experiment, rising and retesting the helmet. Thank you.
The other two groups, well, partial groups here, they also have their helmets, so they would like to show you theirs. If you guys want to tell them what your sport was and what your 2 contact points were. Okay?
All right. The sport my group decided to have for some odd reason was skateboarding. Our design mainly focused on the front of the head here and the back, because you're not going to fall somehow on top of your head. So we decided, put it backwards. Goodness gracious. We decided a drop around the same height of this microphone would be a better idea instead of somehow being up here, because who would want to skateboard that high? So let's see, will it break? I assume it will. Or that. Loud impact, helmet fell off, and ball is on. Our helmet did not pass the test, but since the fact we're at GMS East, we sadly cannot make revisions, but if we get back, and I hope Ms. Ursula lets us, because I want to get this light off, I hope to see that we will.
So, Risha and I were in the same group, and our sport was horseback riding. And when we did our first 3 trials, it definitely lit up, to say the least, but we'd love to still
Show you guys.
Back it up.
See if the ball went off or not.
Definitely what did. But the best part about doing our experiments, as we have stated, is definitely the revisions, because that's how scientists know when to get back on the drawing board, draw some more blueprints, and yeah.
If it's okay, the students want to pass their helmets around so you guys can see them. Okay, go.
While these are going around, I just wanted to thank some folks and make a comment. So, Mrs. Ursler and students, thank you so much for being here tonight and to sharing what you're learning. This is really exciting science for us to be able to see. And I love your focus tonight, excuse me, on starting over and making revisions and problem solving, because board, in a little while during the superintendent's report, you're going to hear me talk quite a lot about problem solving, and you're all the models for that. And I think, friends, you know what we're talking about here, right? We've had to solve quite a lot of problems recently, and thank you for being scientists that are guiding the way.
I just want to add the students, they made all of their notes and their scripts, and all of that was their job, so they did a great job.
Thank you.
We'd like to give you some ribbons for the 4 presenters this evening too, please. Thank you for sharing your wonderful projects.
Fantastic. Yeah. Scientists, again, you also, and parents and guardians, you're welcome to stay. We're going to be talking about GMS quite a lot in a little while, but we also understand if you need to get home and start the rest of your evening. Okay?
Thank you all. Okay, that moves us to our board reports this evening. So I'll go ahead and start this evening, and then I'll pass it around to my colleagues. I want to start off with thanking everybody, thanking the teachers and the staff and the administrators, the families and the community that made this transition to our GMS East something that happened well this week at the University Center of Lake County, which I know we'll have quite a few updates tonight about. It was such a monumental task that all of us were part of, and what you did the most was created almost out of thin air, creative and safe and continuing learning environment for the students. So I want to start off my comments with thanks. We also have a couple of sad news issues to deal with this evening, because as is often the case in our human story, the joy and the celebration that we have are quite often coupled with deep sorrow and loss. And over the past couple of weeks, the D46 family has lost two cherished members of our family. I would like to honor in remembrance Dale Hawk, affectionately known to everyone as Mr. Pickles or Mr. Chippy. He was a dedicated member of our operations and maintenance staff and loved deeply by his colleagues, his friends, and the students here in District 46. We also very sadly mourn the loss of one of our 7th grade students through our CEDAL program, Alfredo Hernandez. He is so fondly remembered as a kind and sweet boy and such an important part of our District 46 and our CEDAL families. Please join me in a moment of silence to honor the memories of Dale and Alfredo. Thank you. I'll pass the microphone along to my colleagues for board comments.
I have no further board reports except to let our entire GMS staff, administration, O&M staff, and everyone else who contributed to GMS East. I was over with my son Monday night before we began, and there was so much energy in the room that it was hard to believe that you were all existing on minimal sleep. Just the problem solving, as Dr. Glickman said, that was on display was pretty incredible. And you know what? Came home the last 2 days and it was a day at school, and I think that's actually what we were aiming for. So much appreciated. And I think it's such a great role model for our kids in how to persevere. So much appreciated.
Mr. Weedman?
Yeah, I'd like to echo the thank you, the big thank you to all the staff for the hard work in the last couple of weeks. It's not over yet, but we'll get through it. We'll move forward as we always do. Second thing I have is we had another economic development meeting with the village partners. We brought our concerns. Initially, we sent the agreement over to our lawyer. He came back with a list of concerns that he had, so we shared them with that group. They're going to rework some things. We still have further discussions. It's not even close to being ready to really discuss yet. So we have another meeting in April coming up. But we are moving forward. We're trying to get language that every taxing body can be happy with. So that's all I have.
Mr. LaCroix?
Thank you. Well, I can't really add much more to what's already been well said by my colleagues, but except for to say thank you so much to the administration and the staff. I see some of you out in the audience here. It's been a long, hard week to get where we're at today. Thank you so much. I think Mrs. Braden said it well. When my GMS student came home and thought it was just another day at school as far as he could tell, and that's a testament to the work you all did. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Mrs. Albert?
Yes, I just want to express briefly some immense gratitude to the staff and families for the major problem solving you've all been doing together, and the extra effort that especially the O&M team has been giving too. And I also want to share that I'd like to thank our colleague, Mrs. Nash, for a bright spot in the January calendar We had a fabulous turnout of families at the MLK Day of Kindness at the local library, and just want to say thank you for her inspiration for that. And for the staff who showed up and helped volunteer, and to Courtney Doninger at the public library who helped make that happen too. Thank you.
Mrs. Nash?
Well, thank you for that, Mrs. Albert. I have a few things. I too wanted to just express gratitude to the Grayslake Area Public Library for their partnership. I think the theme of everything that's top of mind for me tonight is about just community partnership, and just how, you know, we can just ideate together and dream together of what we'd like to see our community, you know, become. And like, you know, 10 years ago, it was just like, where are all the kids? And how do we get the kids here and let them know that this is a day that's important and how they can have impact, and then to see it, you know, flash forward 10 years from now. I share with my colleague, Jessica Albert, who worked the amazing sand project with us, that, you know, my cup was full. It was just like amazing just to see it come full circle. If you haven't had an opportunity to see the sand art project, please stop by the Grayslake Area Public Library. It is on display, and it is a community visual project of art that really just shows what our community stakeholders value and hold important, and it really just helps to just warm your heart, especially with so many other things happening right now. Along that partnership vein, I wanted to just express gratitude for the GMS administration, as well as our partnership with D127. Our 8th graders got an opportunity to experience open house last week to get a taste of what high school life is going to be. And it was simply amazing. I wanted to be back in 8th grade going on my high school tour because it was so well done, and just the collaboration between D46 and 127, knowing that we are a pipeline to D127, and just to see the excitement in our kiddos, knowing that they are ready and they're confident and grounded in what they're about to embark on, just was really encouraging. Excuse me. And then last but not least, in lieu of our science presentation that we had, it just, you know, triggered for me that today is International Education Day, if you didn't know. So I want to wish everybody a happy International Education Day. And for those of you who are not familiar with what International Education Day is, it's a day dedicated to promoting the power of education as a transformative tool for peace and sustainable development. And I really think that TWIG project just kind of spoke to exactly what International Education Day is all about. So thank you.
Mrs. Miller?
So I will echo my thanks to everyone, but I'm going to call out Mr. Smith, because at dinner, the night before last, I think, we were talking about GMS and the amazing pivot that our schools have made, our district has made, and I was talking about Mr. Smith and how I had watched him greet some kids as they got off the bus in the morning. And my daughter just exclaimed, and she's in high school, has been out of middle school for quite a while, and she goes, "That man was made to work in schools." And I thought, not only is that true of Mr. Smith, but everyone else who was involved too. So thank you, thank you, thank you for all of the work that's gone into that transition. So I also had a few other things. So I was in a meeting and learned about some interesting, exciting technology that D127 has installed. I sent an email out to explain it, but for those of you who maybe have not had time to read it, this is called carbon capture technology. It's 2 refrigerator type pieces that go into the HVAC system, the mechanical room, and it actually pulls carbon out of the air and creates something called pearl ash, which then is converted to soap. So it's a really neat example of circular economy, and something that's available to schools and to homeowners. And I was just really interested in, so kind of geeked out and went on their website, and they offer a free visual inspection of all HVAC systems every 2 weeks when they come to collect that pearl ash, which I thought was kind of interesting. So I thought I'd throw that out there. There's two professional development opportunities that I wanted to share with you. One of them is, as a board, we've agreed to do equity training. Is it every year or every term? Christy, I don't know. Every term. So if you've not done yours yet, there's a 3-hour workshop. It's virtual from the Selma Center for Nonviolence, Beyond Divide and Conquer, and it examines race as a social construct that was used to divide working class Black and other and white Americans. And so it was an interesting look at power dynamics. And they also went into what's called Kingian, so Martin Luther King, Kingian principles of nonviolent communication, which I also thought was very practical and very tactical, something I could use immediately. So I wanted to share that if you're interested in, or if you still need to fulfill that requirement, 3 hours. Another opportunity is the CEC is doing limiting beliefs training. So one application of that is taking a look at unconscious bias and giving, again, a tactical tool that you can look at those biases and then kind of turn them around in your head, unlearn whatever you need to unlearn, and then replace it with something that's more healthy and more helpful and better suited to living in an inclusive community. So that's available. There are some open spots for that if anyone's interested. It's 4 sessions. And the last thing is the community cafe topic. We've settled on social emotional learning and have set the date for April 30th. So we're still figuring out the details, but just wanted to give you that for your calendars. And that's my report.
Very good. Thank you very much. That brings us to the superintendent's report. Dr. Glickman.
Thank you, Dr. Mack. Good evening, everyone. I did have to check my calendar today to make sure that I was correct that this is indeed the first Board of Education meeting in 2024. Feels like it's been a very long month already, so I wasn't sure that that was true, but it is indeed true. And I want to share that, our cabinet meets very regularly, and one of the things we talk about quite a lot, thank you, I'm going to be up there, but thank you. One of the things we talk about quite a lot is, our board meetings. We prepare for board meetings, and one of the things we do is talk about the superintendent's report and what we might talk about. And the first week after winter break, we talked about a few things that we might talk about. So I will start with those couple of things, and then I have a lot of other things to tell you that have happened since then. So first of all, I want to thank the Grays Lake Historical Society, and specifically Mr. Chuck Clow, who's here tonight, because you may remember, board, I shared with you that School District 46 was selected to receive a plaque in Grays Lake, and that plaque is now up. It is on Library Lane. It's beautiful, so if you haven't had a chance to go by it, please take a look. We will do something more with it, a little bit of hoopla, but we want to wait until the weather gets better. So we're thinking we might do something like a little ribbon cutting ceremony months after it's up to celebrate. But Mr. Clow, we're so honored that you bestowed this on our community. And as you'll be hearing tonight in a little bit, very difficult but special things have happened here quite recently, and that makes us all the prouder to be honored for the rich history of our school district, because that history continues. So thank you so much, sir. And then we had intended to talk a little bit about MLK Day, and I too want to thank Mrs. Nash and Mrs. Albert and the entire crew over at the Grays Lake Public Library, the area library, because it was a magnificent event. It was very special. And then I also wanted just to tell you that last Thursday, which was our first day on site last week, I was walking through some kindergarten classes and happened to walk through when they were talking about Martin Luther King Jr. So although it was many days afterwards, the learning continued, and I wanted to let you know that. I thank you so much, Dr. Mack, for talking about the 2 terrible deaths that we've had in our district community recently, and I just wanted to share that the entire district shares condolences with the Hernandez family and the Hawk family. And that brings me to a lot of things to talk about. So I'm going to get up because I do have slides.
Hey, Lynn, real quick, where's the plaque at on Library Lane?
All right, you can hear me okay? Okay. All right, lots to tell. So, this is our mission. You know it, we talk about it all the time. And fulfilling this mission runs through everything that we've been through lately and everything we've accomplished over the past week and a half. But we also created a new slide for tonight, some themes. These 3 themes, collaboration, problem solving, and community, because these themes are what allowed us to fulfill that mission. And as I walk you through all that's happened, please keep these themes in mind. We're going to start with collaboration. This experience has indeed been a master class in collaboration for our community. It's been my honor and my joy to watch what has happened when people are passionate and need to create something and feel empowered to jump right in and to offer up ideas and ultimately make decisions. The collaboration has been nothing short of remarkable. And problem solving. On Monday, when the GMS staff was all together, we talked about how when you have a seemingly insurmountable problem, one strategy is to start. And you solve one problem, and then you solve another problem, and then you solve another problem. And if you solve enough problems, you have a solution. And tonight, you're going to hear not just about the main initial problems, but also a brand new problem that just came up that we've already solved through that collaboration. We've joked with each other that we should perhaps write a book about how to open a new school in 5 days. If it's not a book, it's at the very least a presentation at a conference, we think. And by the way, many of the people that have been collaborating and problem solving are right here in this room, and this table, and sitting out here tonight. This morning, I was thinking about the tabletop activities that we do as a leadership team. These are activities that we do to prepare for emergencies. They're mock emergencies, and we sit around and talk about what would we do if. This is the ultimate tabletop activity, except it's not mock. It is indeed the real thing. And then community. Our community of staff and families and the larger community have jumped in over and over again. And the most recent problem that I mentioned that I'll get to in a little bit, it was solved through community connections and community partners. Okay, so we're going to talk about what happened, and I'll start with what occurred with the weather and our e-learning days and the creation and opening of GMS East, and then I will talk about the physical status of all of our schools. So, January 12th, it was last week. 10 inches of snow fell on January 12th. The day before, we sent out alerts to our community that there were the predictions of severe snowstorms, and all of our schools would be closed and students would be e-learning on January 12th. And again, approximately 10 inches of snow fell. And then we had bitter, bitter cold. Over the weekend, temperatures in the area absolutely plummeted, and you can see out in bright yellow, Grays Lake was negative 12 degrees, and that's without the wind chill, and I believe with the wind chill, we were at negative 34. By the way, that bright yellow pullout, that's a good indication that Leslie helped with this presentation, just so you know. So the slides that look super fancy, they have Leslie's hand in them. The ones that are less fancy, I did those, just so you know. Okay, very, very cold. And so we had this ongoing e-learning. E-learning for all of Tuesday, January 16th, due to bitter cold, right? We continued with our e-learning. And then, and we're going to be going into much more detail about this in a little while, we had e-learning on Wednesday the 17th due to the repairs that were needed at schools. And then Thursday and Friday of last week, e-learning continued at Frederick and GMS, and we were able to have the rest of our students on site. So back to January 17th. Well, after receiving the news of how extensive the repairs to Grays Lake Middle School would be, focus shifted on finding a suitable location to house 630 plus students, plus staff for an extended period of time to provide education, food service, bus transportation, and technology. There was a very short list of options, and University Center of Lake County closely matched our requirements. This was about community, because when I received this news on Wednesday morning, the very first thing I did was turn to my superintendent community, which is the Lake County team of superintendents. I sent out a message to all of those superintendents, letting them know what we thought was about to happen for us. It wasn't, you know, information was developing, but this is how it was looking. And my goodness, within minutes, emails were coming in and my phone was blowing up with all kinds of ideas. And the one that made the most sense came from the superintendent of North Chicago School District, Dr. John Price, who had used University Center of Lake County about a year and a half ago in the fall of 22, when their middle school was unable to open. And so that information came to me probably around 9 o'clock. Okay, more about community. I reached out to University Center, and immediately they said, what do you need? Yes. When do you want to come? And by about 11:30, 11:45, Mr. Smith and Mrs. Gluck and I were on campus talking about what would be possible. That all happened in a matter of 3 hours. That's about community. So this small team, I just described it, assembled to assess whether we would be able to accommodate our needs and our students on University Center. And with all those classrooms and a food prep kitchen and a parking area and the knowledge that they had been used this way before, we decided that right away that we could shift all of our students into that learning environment 2.1 miles down the road to University Center. And after the day of learning, that day of e-learning was complete, on Thursday, January 18th, the next day, we gathered together our GMS staff and shared them the news with them, let them know about the extent of damage, and let them know that we would be, and then we named it, we would be opening Grays Lake Middle School East, GMS East, at the University Center of Lake County. We planned it out that we would have another day of e-learning for our students. Monday, this past Monday, would be an emergency day for students where they would not have school, and we'd be able to gather all of our staff on campus so that they could get ready for school to happen the very next day. And we shared the information then with all of our families. The news broke. And maybe you saw a little bit of the coverage. Yeah, Leslie made this slide. More coverage. Where'd it go? Whoop. More coverage. Look at that. There we are. Lots of people wanting to think about it and talk about it. And then we had to kind of not think about the press and prepare to open GMS East. All right, I'm reminding you about that, those three themes: collaboration, problem solving, community. So As the planning process continued throughout the weekend, we were letting people know what was going to happen, and we were planning. Now, in a little while, you're going to see a lot of pictures. There are no pictures here, and there's a reason. Because if I were going to show you pictures of the planning process at the beginning, it would be a lot of people in their pajamas over the weekend, maybe on Zoom calls, and talking to each other, trying to figure out what we were going to do. All weekend long, getting ready for staff on Monday. An open house was held on Sunday, January 21st from 2 to 4. And again, the next day on Monday from 5 to 8, so that families could come and see the University Center, and students and their parents and guardians could start getting comfortable with the idea. And we understand that about 50% of our GMS families attended. Here are some wonderful pictures of the open house. I see some familiar faces. I see Dr. Mack. I see Dr. Woke. I see Mr. Smith. And that brings us to the next day, January 22nd, when our staff members came together to attend an orientation and training and really to make decisions. They had to continue making decisions at the University Center. They had to work through the logistics of classrooms, schedules, materials, technology, transportation, and more. And at the end of a long day, we were ready for the first day of school. Again, here's some more wonderful pictures of collaboration. He wanted you to see that. Just people sitting together, working it all out. And after a day of that, we were at Tuesday, which was yesterday, the first day of school. We had the Panther on site. He was great. We have, okay, I admit to have taken that picture on the top right with those goofy girls, which I just loved, right? They were ready to mug for the camera. They were looking outside and thinking about what was going to be happening in the next few weeks. And you can see down at the bottom, we have our fantastic food service team. So, you know, you'll hear me talking a little bit about all of our incredible vendors that just made changes on a moment's notice. Those are some of our vendors down there. Today was the second day of school, and as you heard some of the board members talk about, as some of you talked about, it really felt like business as usual on the second day of school. As I popped around from classroom to classroom, the kids were just learning. And the teachers were just instructing, watching the lunch and passing periods. Oh my goodness, the kids are just walking through the classrooms. We are trying to teach them to stay to the right, just so you know, but we're working on it. They are settling in so beautifully, supported by the reassurance of our amazing staff and through their own resilience. And then what happened? Well, a hurdle that we thought was solved was no longer solved. All right, so I'm going to back up a little bit and go back to that day that Amy and Marcus and I were sitting with the staff at the University Center, way back last Wednesday. At that time, we were told about two hurdles regarding our, us being able to reserve space. One of the hurdles was adjusted very quickly. It was an important one. There were universities that had reserved space on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons, every Tuesday and Thursday afternoons, and they needed, I think it was about 6 to 8 classrooms. University Center worked with those folks, and all of those students are learning remotely right now, and we are incredibly grateful to everyone who made that happen. The second hurdle actually was about another local school district that had reserved space next week, Tuesday and Wednesday, in the mornings from 9 to 12:30, to provide space for access testing, which is testing that's required by the state of Illinois for students who are multilingual learners. And they were going to be bringing all of their high school students on site at University Center for those 2 mornings. And I thought, oh my goodness. Well, I know the superintendent of that district. We're all colleagues. I'm sure we can work it out. And that superintendent was incredibly gracious. Yes, absolutely. We know this isn't going to work for you. We're going to find another space. And we kept sending ideas to that superintendent, and they were working on it. And when we started school yesterday morning, we understood that problem to be 95% solved. And at some point during the day, I got the news that it was no longer solved, that their solution had fallen through, and that in fact, that school district was going to have to be on site next Tuesday and next Wednesday from 9 to 12:30, and we would need to be displaced. All right, we had our moment of silence, and then we got to work. And we got to collaborating and problem solving and actually working with folks at the University Center first who were helping us with ideas. And we worked on that yesterday, and we worked on it today. And so next week, on Tuesday and Wednesday, we are unveiling GMS East on the Move. And this is hot off the presses, and I think, Mr. Smith, you gave me the nod a little while ago that the email just went to the GMS parents, right, their families. We're going to have students at Lake County Tech Campus and the College of Lake County. And we're taking our 7th graders to one spot on one day, and the 8th graders to another spot on that same day, and then we're flipping them. A number of us went over to Lake County Tech Campus today. If you've never seen it, it is unbelievable. And our students are going to be able to be on that magnificent campus doing pretty much their regular academic learning, but also seeing a little bit about what's available at the Lake County Tech Campus when they're high schoolers. Fantastic for them. And then they'll be at the College of Lake County, and we are in the process of developing activities for them when they're at the College of Lake County. We're going to be able to have buses just dropping students off at those 2 spaces, so it'll be regular pickup. We're going to drop the 7th graders off on all their buses at one spot, and then they'll continue on and drop the 8th graders off at the next spot. At some point in the afternoon, the students will all walk. We checked, the weather's going to be awesome. They're going to walk. It's not very far away from University Center. They will walk back to University Center, by which time the high schoolers that are using the spot are going to be gone, and buses will be able to pick them up there. That problem solving happened over the past 24 hours by the same people that are sitting in this room and the same people that have been problem solving for such a long time so intensely, I'll say, over a short period of time. And then again, that's the thanks to our community partners who right away said, yes, what can we do? We want to help. So thank you to the Tech Campus and to the College of Lake County, and actually quite a lot of other entities who were offering up some field trip possibilities that ended up not being what we ended up doing, but were so gracious. That's where we are currently at Grays Lake at GMS East. But what about the facilities back home? What happened and what's next? So here we go with all of that. You've seen this slide before, but I'm going to stick there because to start, it's really important to place all of this in the context of extreme weather conditions. This began with an ice and snowstorm followed by extremely low temperatures, especially overnight, that had an impact on our heating and building system infrastructure. The results were different failures in the systems depending on the buildings. In some cases, the boilers didn't fire when they were supposed to. In other cases, rooftop air handling units either failed or were shut down. The result is we had frozen sprinkler pipes as well as some similar damage in the buildings, in other buildings. And at some buildings, the damage was limited to broken coils and individual unit ventilators. And we're going to go through building by building so you can see what we had at each place. So I'm going to start at GMS because, as we know, obviously that's where there's most extensive damage. The largest problems are there. And what we can tell you at this time is that several issues occurred in rapid succession. First, the boilers wouldn't start. They didn't fire. So there was no hot water moving to the rest of the heating system. It appears that this may have been due to an air intake damper not fully opening, which may have had an impact on the building controls signaling to the boiler itself. Second, approximately half of our rooftop units, our RTUs, were unable to be activated due to gas supply being deactivated. And unfortunately, with the extent of time that the building was out without full heating, or in some cases heating of any kind in some areas, there was extensive freezing of pipes. And all of that led to broken pipes, broken sprinkler heads, and water damage. Our focus was immediately on restoring the system to working order, with work being done by our district operations team and several repair contractors assisting, and we'll talk about those in a bit. And as you know, we were told that this work would take several weeks. I do have some photos to share with you. We have a lot of photos that we've been gathering. I just have a few to share this evening. So I mentioned sprinklers. So on the left is a sprinkler head that has fallen to the floor, and that happened all throughout GMS. On the right side, you can actually see the hole, right? That's where the sprinkler head was. Those fell to the floor, and in fact, they are all in need of replacement, correct? We're replacing all of the sprinkler heads at GMS. So that's what that looks like. These photos, well, you can see on the very left, we just see some of the damage in the classroom, in one of the classrooms with water. So water came from both sprinkler heads, you know, when sprinkler heads fell, there was water that came out in some cases, but also from burst pipes. So the middle photo shows you what a burst pipe looks like. But on the right, you see a univentilator. Am I saying it correctly? Yep, univentilator. Many of which have had to be pulled away from the walls at GMS while okay, it's not me, but while others are looking at them very carefully to see what pipes have to be fixed. And they are going classroom by classroom to pull those out and to survey the damage and then to correct the damage. We're going to move on to Prairie View School. Whoops, one moment. All right. At Prairie View, we had similar issues that we had to GMS, just much less extensive because we were able to address the problems of the combustion air take dampers that failed to open fully, preventing one boiler from operating. We were able to address that quickly enough that there wasn't freezing occurring in the school, so we didn't have pipe damage. It is noted, however, that boiler problems persisted through the middle of the week last week. So the boilers were still struggling, but we didn't have extensive damage at Prairie View. Here at Frederick, the issue was a single rooftop unit that failed. And that's not uncommon in such cold weather. But there's also evidence of insulation damage, which may have contributed to freezing in the infrastructure. So in other words, there was one that failed entirely. Other ones that didn't fail may not have been able to bring the heat that was needed into the building because of damaged insulation. While this did result in some frozen piping in concealed spaces, the damage was able to be addressed. The unit is operational, and we were able to have students back in the building this week on Monday. At Park Campus, similar to GMS, we had a broken sprinkler head causing water damage. Only one sprinkler head was broken, and so there's only water damage from that one. We were thrilled that further damage did not materialize, but I do want to tell you that during the bitter cold on Tuesday, we did not know whether or not there might be more damage coming to Park. So as we were making decisions about what was going to happen on Wednesday for students, we knew Frederick couldn't open. We knew GMS couldn't open. We were very concerned about Prairie View because the boiler kept going down. And at Park, we had reason to be concerned that we could have a similar situation at Park than we had at GMS. Thank goodness that we didn't, but all of those factors led into the decision to have e-learning for all students on Wednesday. Meadowview, less damage. 1 broken sprinkler head and 1 water pipe broke in a restroom. And finally, Woodview and Avon, which had the least amount of damage and kind of the most expected damage. So throughout Woodview and Avon, we had spots where there were isolated unit ventilators with broken coils. That happened actually throughout the county in schools. Many of my colleagues were saying, yep, I have 4 cold classrooms, that kind of thing. We had those things at Woodview and Avon, and board, as you know, we were moving students into other classrooms while those issues were addressed. So who's been fixing it all? Well, we've had our CCSD 46 operations team working round the clock, and we'll be talking about that in a moment. We have 4 other teams that are also on site. We have a plumbing team working with us. We have a fire suppression team fixing the sprinkler system. As I mentioned to you, every single one of the sprinkler heads at GMS needs to be repaired. HVAC. No surprise that our HVAC vendor that we work with, Train, is with us constantly, and then a remediation team that is coming through and cleaning it all up as matters are corrected. We have constant monitoring of buildings lately. So at GMS, we have had ongoing 24-hour monitoring. So that's been our O&M staff, our operations and maintenance staff, that are committed to making sure that we don't have more mechanical system failure causing further damage. And so we have people taking shifts all night long to keep that building safe. Also, you may remember that last weekend we had bitter cold, and we were very concerned about the status of all of our schools that we had just gotten up and running, and therefore every member of our operations and maintenance team took shifts in schools all weekend long so that we had all of those buildings under our watchful eye. We also had members from Train, that's the HVAC company, who were on site at GMS, but also available to us for troubleshooting, and indeed we did need some troubleshooting last weekend at various buildings. So, what's our current focus? Well, think back to how I began this presentation, talking about GMS East. It is the ongoing safe and meaningful learning experiences for all of our students, and we are so proud of our work there. It is about repairing GMS, and of course, it is about identifying the causes. So let's talk about that. Ongoing, identifying the causes will require studying all of the potential factors and issues that are based on system reporting, which should identify those issues and the timing of notifications, responses of different parties in the process, and each of our equipment failures. So basically, and I'm not sure if I said that well or not because I am reading to you, it's that important. We are looking at all of our systems along with the reports that go with those systems to identify potential factors that created those equipment failures. Our team is working on this now, but it will take time to work through that information. In the meantime, our Panthers are happily housed at GMS East. After school activities start tomorrow. Yeah? And again, all of that was accomplished through amazing collaboration, creative problem solving, and a warm and generous community. So board, with that, I would love to know if you have any questions. Mr. Ochoa may be the one to answer some of them, we'll see. We also have fantastic members of our staff here who may be able to answer questions for you.
I am just in awe of that whole story and just wonderful. Congratulations again for everything. Board, I'll open it up to my colleagues for any questions, comments. Mr. LaCroix?
Yeah, so I'm curious about the current condition of the buildings. Are all the boilers now properly functioning and the buildings are properly heated at this point? And say at GMS, right, if there weren't broken pipes and damage that needed to be cleaned, would there be sufficient heat to house students at this point?
Yeah, so we're working towards that. Once we have all the unit ventilators, so we have, the boilers are circulating hot water. They're just not completing the circle because we have a lot of unit ventilators that are isolated right now because of, those broken pipes, but yeah.
It's on a continuous system, and if there's a missing piece, that's the end of the line for that hot water to provide heat. Okay. So I guess my question then kind of becomes, looking into the future, right? We have another cold spell or something. I know that nothing's on the horizon for the next 7 days like we had, but are we at risk again of, at this point, are we exposed in that way with insufficient heat to keep our pipes from freezing?
Well, so the rooms aren't being supplied, right? But there's a main supply. So there's two main lines that are circulating through the whole north side of the building. And then we do have 6 rooftop units too that are supplying heat that are working properly now as well. So it's just really getting those unit ventilators back online. But it'll essentially be the same thing. Like if we do have a cold front, it's going to be the individual rooms that are impacted and not the rest of the area. So because we can continue that loop.
I just one thing you forgot to mention in your presentation was the ice storm on Tuesday that started out the busing problem.
There was an ice storm on Tuesday. Thank you.
One more thing to overcome.
Yeah.
Other than that, just thank you for everybody's work.
Dr. Glickman, truly a Herculean effort by the district administrators, the OEM team, and just wanted to say, thank you so much. It's not lost on us, just the countless hours, weekends, pajama parties to get this done. And I know there's quite a bit of investigation underway to get to root cause. Do you have a sense for like a timetable as to when you expect for information to materialize, in part or whole?
Sure. I don't, and it's because information keeps developing, right? And so the last thing I want to do is provide information that turns out to be untrue, right? That would be terrible. And so so no, I don't. I will add this though. Board, you know that certainly insurance is a large part of this story, and we have an insurance claim out there, and so it's our insurance adjusters who are a big piece of doing that kind of investigation.
I'm sure the thought was percolating amongst many community stakeholders.
Just like families are glad when they have a good insurance policy, when something catastrophic happens in their home, we feel the same way here in the school district.
So I was listening to a Brene Brown podcast today, and as I was listening, she was explaining how important it is to do something called a rumble, is what she calls her meetings when there's a problem and they have to work through the problem. And she talked about how important it is to build a culture in which that can happen, where because it's so easy to fall into blame and shame and when something like this happens. So I don't have questions. I just want to thank you and your whole team, but I'm going to ask you to take some of a large part of the credit for this is setting up a culture where that can happen and where there can be a real examination of what's gone wrong, but a deliberate analysis of where we go from now and then how it happened. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Glickman.
Thank you.
Okay, that moves us on to the consent agenda this evening for tonight. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda, and that includes the personnel addendum that came earlier this afternoon.
I'll move.
Second.
Okay?
Braden,
Aye.
Nash,
Aye.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Albert,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
and Weedman.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. We've got a few action items tonight, and these were the ones that were discussed prior to that. The first item, I need a motion to approve the reunification agreement with Round Lake Beach.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay. Go ahead.
Weedman,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Nash,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
LaCroy,
Aye.
and Albert.
Aye.
All right, motion approved. The second action item, I need a motion to approve the Chromebook case replacement fees as presented to us.
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
Albert,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Weedman,
Aye.
and Nash.
Aye.
Okay, motion approved. And finally, we need to, a motion for the approval of the contract award for the roof replacement over at Avon Center School.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Okay.
Albert,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Nash,
Aye.
and Weedman.
Aye.
All right, motion approved. Moving to unfinished business, we have a referendum update. Am I bringing that back over to you, Dr. Glickman?
You
Okay,
are.
All right.
It's brief. Our community our community meetings for community members are scheduled at all schools, almost all schools, in January and February. We have already had the first one, which was over at Avon Center School. The next meeting is right here at Frederick on Monday night, this upcoming Monday. There was one scheduled for Wednesday night at GMS. We're not going to bring the public into GMS right now because none of us are going into GMS right now. So that one's been canceled. We are considering adding an additional meeting actually at GMS East at the University Center one evening sometime later in January or sometime in February, but that's not yet scheduled, and we'll let the community know if and when we do that. And then just a reminder that the tax calculator is on our website, so any community member can plug in their own information to identify what the passage of a referendum would do to their own tax situation. That's it for my update.
Okay, we do have a couple of items on the new business section of the agenda this evening. The first one being the 3-year priority capital update.
Yeah, so for the 3-year capital update, there was a few changes that we made. And the following item for the health and life safety improvements is something that kind of goes hand in hand and helped us make the decision to shift some of the items for the health and life safety, the capital improvement, I'm sorry. So something that's new for year 3 is the 10-year health and life safety survey for 1.1 million of priority B projects. Meadowview carpet, no longer a 3-year priority based on available funding that will be evaluated in year 4 to 10. Sidewalks and concrete, no longer a 3-year priority based on available funding that will be evaluated in year 4 and 10. And ADA door at GMS, no longer a 3-year priority as well due to available fundings and will be evaluated in year 4 to 10. And for Avon Center School, based on the approval, we're on schedule for the roof replacement.
And the second item on the new business is architectural services proposal with Wold Architects for the health and life safety improvements.
So we met with Wold, and based on the 3-year capital update, we are shifting towards completing the priority B items that we have. And, basically going back to those things that I mentioned, which is the carpet replacement at Meadowview, concrete work at Meadowview and Park Campus, and the fire doors at GMS, which is something that we're going to revise later in the 4 to 10 year plan.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
I do have a question. Mr. Ochoa, thanks for that update. So when a project gets deprioritized, does it still stay as required but just goes to a different time frame, or does it bump down to recommended?
Right now, we're just putting it for a different time frame.
Okay,
Yeah.
but it's still under required?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, all right. That moves us to topics for future agenda items.
I can let you know what I have on the docket. The February 7th board meeting will start with a policy committee meeting. And then we have Park Campus, leader of the PAC students coming. You remember they were here with us in the fall, and they're excited to come back on February 7th. We'll have our student fees action item that was a topic of discussion in December, and you'll be voting on it on February 7th. And then the architectural service proposal action item, so what Mr. Ochoa was talking about a little while ago, will become an action item. We also have an assessment overview for you that will be done by Amy Gluck. She was planning to do it for you this evening, but with everything that has occurred, we thought it made more sense to bump that back and do that in February so that folks could attend to it. So that's what I have on February 7th. On February 21st, we have, so I'll start by mentioning another topic that was on tonight's agenda originally that we moved, which is a discussion about the social media lawsuit possibilities and whether or not the board wanted to pursue that. So you'll have an opportunity to discuss that. We could put that on February 7th, but I was just kind of trying to spread things out on board meetings, and February 21st is currently a lighter board meeting, so I thought we could talk about that on the 21st. That 3-year capital plan will be discussed again on the 21st, and then I believe Dr. Diaz is going to do a presentation about asylum seekers and kind of an update about that. So that's what I have for the month of February.
All righty. Thank you, Dr. Glickman. Are there any public comments? Sorry, Mrs. Miller, please, go ahead.
All good. I wondered if, I was looking through the HLS, the Health and Life Safety Report, and noticed that one of the comments that's included in that report, I'll just read it directly, it says that we don't have a cohesive guideline or defining standard to guide decisions about sustainability. So I wondered if anyone else has interest in convening a sustainability advisory committee that would be a citizen committee that we could talk about what that guidelines or definition of sustainability might be, and perhaps look at what some other schools and districts are doing in terms of sustainability, because they said in that report that our policies and programs kind of are all over the place and don't have a cohesive structure to them. So I'm curious if anyone else has interest in that, and if we could talk about it at the next meeting.
So you'd like that added to the February 7th board meeting? Is that correct? It might be lighter, and I will note that on March 6th, there's going to be a composting presentation. So if you wanted to do it that night. Okay.
I have one that I'm not sure is a board report or an item. Way before the holidays, it feels like a long time ago, Dr. Glickman, that you and I met with the Moms Demand Action representatives.
Yes, that was before the holidays, indeed. It was
We had a meeting
December.
with two wonderful community members who are members of Moms Demand Action for gun violence prevention. And they've asked us to consider a resolution. Sorry, I lost the word there for a minute. They've asked us to consider a resolution similar to one that was put forward by the Warren board. So I'd like to bring that to you all for a discussion, but I've been playing email and phone tag with one of the Warren board members because I wanted to talk to them and just kind of get a sense for how they decided to do the resolution, what's in their resolution, and why, so that I could just bring you what another district was doing so that we can consider it. So, that can be, it's not something that has to be at the next meeting. It can be.
Well, do you want to just let me know when you feel like the loop is closed, and then we'll add it in? Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully this week, but.
Okay, any other items? Ms. Albert?
Just jumping back to what Christy Miller had mentioned, in fact, at the MLK Day at the library, a community member did mention that this person had a lot of knowledge and information to share, and so it's interesting timing that you bring that up, because I think I will be reaching out to that person. So if after our discussion we decide to go through with an advisory group.
Any public comments on the lists? No, still none, okay. Okay, we do have a closed session this evening, so I am going to move to enter us into closed session, and we are doing this evening in accordance with the Public Act 5 Illinois CS 120/2, paragraph C1, the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including the hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity, and in support of Public Act 5 ILCS 120/2, paragraph C2, collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more of the classes of employees. I need a motion.
I'm glad you said it, but I'll motion.
Seconded.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Nash. Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Albert,
Aye.
Weedman,
Aye.
and Braden.
Aye.
Okay, we can enter into closed session. We do not expect any additional business after the closed session, so we will not be returning to open session after that. Thank you, everybody.